Very good afternoon to one and all. I welcome you all for the next lecture of heat transfer. Please let me know whether my voice is audible and can you see my presentation. Great, great, great. Okay. So in the last lecture, we have discussed about the uh, hydrodynamic boundary layer or a velocity boundary layer over the flat surface. Okay. So in that we have learned how what is meant by uh, what is meant by boundary thickness, what is the boundary region, then what is nothing but inviscid region. Okay, so that point we have discussed. Then no slip boundary condition at the region of or at the boundary surface or the plate surface that we have discussed in the last lecture. Today we are going to understand the thermal boundary layer. Okay, today we are going to understand the thermal boundary layer, and I think the screen is visible to you, but for more visibility or to see all the data from the screen, I request everyone, those are using mobile, you can rotate your screen and you can use the zoom feature also. Okay. Now here we are going to consider one plate. Okay. Once again, we are going to consider one plate, and over this plate, the free stream fluid or the flow field is flowing with a u meter per second velocity and having the temperature of a TA. Okay, having the temperature of a TA. So free stream temperature is T suffix A. Okay, and we are going to consider the surface temperature of a plate is capital T suffix S. Okay, capital T suffix S. So that will be the surface temperature. Now we have discussed in the last lecture only that the layer which is in contact with the surface will get adheres to the surface. Okay, will get adheres to the surface. Now in a similar fashion, if you say that this first layer is approaching to the plate, and it will get adheres to the plate, it will get adheres to the plate. Okay, and once it will get adheres to the plate, it will attain the equilibrium with the plate surface. It will attain the equilibrium with the plate surface. Equilibrium means what? The temperature of that uh, layer is equal to the temperature of a surface. Okay, is equal to temperature of a surface. So there will not be any temperature difference. Now here we are going to consider that the temperature of a plate is greater than the temperature of a fluid. Okay, temperature of a plate is greater than the temperature of a fluid, so that the heat will be transferred from the plate surface to the fluid. Okay, from the plate surface to the fluid. Now here, as we have discussed that the no slip boundary condition in the last lecture, the first layer or the layer which is near to the surface, that will get adheres to the surface. In a similar fashion here, the first layer will get adheres to the surface. Okay, and it will attain the equilibrium with the surface temperature. It will attain the equilibrium with the surface temperature. Now that particular layer will transfer the heat or will exchange the heat with the adjacent top layer. That layer which is adhered to the surface, that particular layer will exchange the heat to the adjacent top layer. Okay, will exchange the heat with the adjacent top layer. But because of thermal resistance offered for the conduction or for the convection, because of that, the total heat will not be transferred. Somewhat lesser amount of heat will be transferred. So we will get, if you consider this is the second layer, which is which is at the top of the adjacent bottom layer, or we can say that the layer which is adhered to the surface. So this is, if you consider this is the second layer, the second layer temperature at this particular point will get lesser as compared to the layer which is adhered to the surface because of a convective resistance or the convection resistance. We can say that conductive resistance. Okay, and in a similar fashion, this temperature or the heat will transfer to the adjacent top layers. Okay, and because of resistance for the heat transfer, the temperature of the adjacent top layers will goes on decreasing. The temperature of adjacent top layers will goes on decreasing, and at one point we are getting the temperature difference. Okay, here we are talking about the temperature difference. Now at one point we are getting the temperature difference equal to initial temperature difference, or we can say that if the temperature difference is 99% of initial temperature difference. Okay, that particular point. Okay, that particular point, and the distance of that point where we are getting the 99% of initial temperature difference, distance of that point from the plate surface, vertical distance from that particular point from the plate surface is known as a thickness of thermal boundary layer. Thickness of a thermal boundary layer. Okay, thickness of a thermal boundary layer. Okay, what is meant by thickness of thermal boundary layer? The distance at which, vertical distance at which we are getting the temperature difference is equal to 99% of the initial temperature difference. Okay, initial temperature difference means what? Initial free stream temperature is TA and the surface temperature is TS. Okay, surface temperature is TS. So we can say that initial temperature difference is TS minus TA. So 99% of TS minus TA. At what point we are getting the 99% of initial temperature difference? So vertical distance from the plate surface to that particular point is known as a thermal boundary layer thickness. Thermal boundary layer thickness. Okay, and beyond that, beyond this particular limit, we'll get the temperature of a flow field equal to the initial temperature. Okay, so beyond this field, we'll get the initial temperature difference. Beyond this field, we'll get initial temperature difference. So as we move over this, or the fluid will move over this particular flat plate, the more and more fluid will be in a contact with the surface. Okay, the more and more fluid will be in a contact with the surface, and the plate will exchange the heat with the fluid. Okay, and the plate will exchange the heat with the fluid. So the more and more heat will be exchanged with the fluid. Okay, so as we move forward, and if you take the further point on that particular plate, if you take the further point on that particular plate, so we will get that particular thickness somewhat larger than the initial point. Okay, somewhat higher location than the initial point. And if you draw the curve joining all such a point where we are getting the temperature difference equal to 99% of the initial temperature difference. So all such a point below that, if you join this all such a point, then we will get one region below that particular curve. Okay, we will get this particular region below that particular curve where we are getting the temperature profiles. Temperature profiles means like this: temperature variation. Okay, temperature variation. So these arrows are showing the quantity of a temperature. So below this region we are getting temperature is varies with respect to y direction. Temperature is varies with respect to y direction. So T is a function of a y. Okay, T is a function of a y. in this particular region. So this particular region will be called as a thermal boundary layer region. This particular region is called as a thermal boundary layer region. And this curve will show you limit of thermal boundary layer. Okay, limit of thermal boundary layer. Where below that particular curve, we are getting temperature variation with respect to Y. And beyond this particular curve, we will get the temperature is equal to the initial temperature of a fluid. Okay, initial temperature of fluid, that is nothing but T suffix A. And as we move forward on the plate, more and more fluid will be in a contact with the plate surface, more and more layers will be in contact with the surface. So more heat will be exchanged from the plate surface to the fluid, and so that the thickness of thermal boundary layer will goes on increasing as we move over the flat plate surface in a forward direction, or towards the trailing edge, So near to the leading edge, we will get the thickness of a thermal boundary layer smaller, but near to the trailing edge, we are getting the temperature thickness of a temperature boundary layer or thermal boundary layer somewhat larger as compared to the leading edge as compared to the leading edge. Okay, this is the leading edge and this is the trailing edge. Getting everyone? So this is called as a thermal boundary layer. Okay, this is called as a thermal boundary layer. Is there any question, any doubt in this point? Is there any question, any doubt? Whether you understood what is meant by thermal boundary layer, or should I repeat? Okay, you can draw the diagram. I will provide you 2-minute time period. So you can draw the diagram and we will further proceed for the write-up part. Over? Have you drawn the diagram? Okay, shall I move ahead? Okay, so write down when the temperature of a fluid, when the temperature of fluid flowing on a surface, when the temperature of a fluid flowing on a surface is different from is different from is different from that of the surface, that of the surface, comma, the thermal boundary layer develops, the thermal boundary layer develops on the surface, on the surface, the thermal boundary layer develops on the surface, on the surface, full stop. Next line, consider a fluid, consider a fluid, consider a fluid at a uniform velocity u, at a uniform velocity u, consider a fluid at a uniform velocity u at a uniform velocity u and uniform temperature and uniform temperature T, capital T suffix A, capital T suffix A and uniform temperature capital T suffix A approaches the leading edge, approaches the leading edge of a thin flat plate, approaches the leading edge of a thin flat plate approaches the leading edge of a thin flat plate, full stop. Let the flat plate at a uniform temperature, let the flat plate at a uniform temperature, let the flat plate at a uniform temperature, T suffix S, T suffix S, let the flat plate at a uniform temperature, capital T suffix S, full stop. Let T suffix S is greater than T suffix A, that is nothing but surface temperature of a flat plate is greater than the fluid temperature. The fluid temperature. Okay, full stop. Next. Then first layer that comes in contact with the surface, then first layer that comes in contact with the surface, will adhere to the surface, will adhere to the surface and reach thermal equilibrium and reach thermal equilibrium with the surface. Then first layer adheres in contact with the surface. The first layer that comes in contact with the surface will adhere to the surface and reach thermal equilibrium with the surface and attain temperature T suffix S. And attain temperature T suffix S. Then the fluid particles in the layer, then the fluid particles in the layer then the fluid particles in the layer exchange energy with the molecules, then the fluid particles in the layer exchange energy with the molecules in the adjacent layer, in the adjacent layer, and so on. In the adjacent layer, and so on. Full stop. Thus, the temperature profile, the temperature profile will develop. Thus, the temperature profile will develop in the flow field, in the flow field, and temperature will vary, from T suffix s, and temperature will vary from T suffix s at the surface, to to T suffix a, at the free stream, to T suffix a at the free stream, to T suffix a at the free stream. Okay, the region, the region in which the region in which the temperature varies, the region in which the temperature varies in the y direction, the region in which the temperature varies in the y direction is known as thermal boundary layer, is known as thermal boundary layer, is known as thermal boundary layer. The region in which the temperature varies in the y direction is known as thermal boundary layer. Full stop. Next, the thickness of thermal boundary layer, thickness of thermal boundary layer, thickness of thermal boundary layer increases, thickness of thermal boundary layer increases with increasing distance, thickness of thermal boundary layer increases with increasing distance along the plate, along the plate. Full stop. This is because of, this is because of, this is because of effect of heat transfer, this is because of effect of heat transfer are felt more, this is because of effect of heat transfer are felt more. This is because of effect of heat transfer are felt more. Full stop. Next, the thermal boundary layer thickness, the thermal boundary layer thickness, that is delta Th, thermal boundary layer thickness, that is delta Th, is the distance, in y direction, in y direction. Thermal boundary layer thickness is the distance in y direction from the plate surface, at which, at which temperature difference is, at which temperature difference is 99% of initial temperature difference, at which the temperature difference is 99% of initial temperature difference. Okay, 99% of initial temperature difference. Getting everyone? Is there any question, any doubt in this particular point? Okay. The next point is characteristic length or equivalent diameter or hydraulic diameter. Characteristic length or equivalent diameter or hydraulic diameter. Write down the heading: characteristic length or equivalent diameter or hydraulic diameter or hydraulic diameter. Okay. So as we know that the heat transfer coefficient is not a property of a substance, or it is not a property of flow. It depends on various different properties of a flow and geometric conditions of that particular object. Over we are determining the heat transfer rate. Now, to determine this heat transfer rate or heat transfer coefficient, we require the geometric properties. Okay, such we require the geometric properties. Now, these geometric properties or the geometric dimensions are simpler in some of the cases. Okay, so if you are considering the simple flat plate, if you are considering the simple pipe, so in that case we will get the simple geometries and the calculations are not that much complicated. But the some geometries are very much complicated. If you consider the engine, okay, so very much complicated geometry. Then if you consider the transformer, so there is no fixed shape to that particular object. So in that case, it is very difficult to determine the dimensions of that particular object. It is very difficult to determine the surface area, or we can say that the required geometrical dimensions for the heat transfer. It is very difficult to understand that particular dimensions. So in that case, it is simple to use the characteristic length or equivalent diameter. Okay, it is very simple to use the characteristic length or the equivalent diameter or the hydraulic diameter. So what is mean by hydraulic diameter? So this particular geometry, whatever geometry we are going to consider, so that geometry or the object we are trying to convert into a single pipe. Okay, we are trying to convert in a single pipe, or we can say that in the form of a cylindrical geometry, and we are applying the conditions or the environmental condition or the flow condition over that particular pipe. So that pipe will provide the same resistance for the heat transfer as that of the actual geometry. So to convert the object into the cylindrical pipe, to convert that particular object into cylindrical pipe, and the diameter of that particular pipe will be considered as a hydraulic diameter or equivalent diameter or the characteristic length. Okay, samajhte? Getting everyone? So what I'm saying, some of the geometries or the objects are difficult to understand their dimensions. Okay, so in that case we are trying to convert that particular object into a equivalent cylindrical pipe. Okay, equivalent cylindrical pipe. So that cylindrical pipe will provide the same resistance as that of a geometry. Okay, as that of a actual geometry, and the diameter of that converted imaginary cylindrical pipe will be considered as a hydraulic diameter or the equivalent diameter. And then further we will perform the calculations of flow field or fluid mechanics, or we can say that the heat transfer also. Okay, then we can use that particular conversion for our calculation purpose. So that will be simplify your calculations related to the complicated geometry. That will simplify your calculation related to your complicated geometry. So that is nothing but characteristic length. So in case of a convection, these characteristic lengths are used, or the equivalent diameters are used, or in if you want to determine the pressure drop, so in that case also this particular characteristic length or the equivalent diameters are used. Okay, so the basic formula for conversion purpose is nothing but ELC or the characteristic length or equivalent diameter, which is equal to 4 multiplied by cross section area whole divided by weighted perimeter. Okay, 4 multiplied by cross section area divided by weighted perimeter. Okay, so we will get this equation that ELC is equal to DH, that is nothing but characteristic length is equal to hydraulic diameter is equal to 4 multiplied by cross section area divided by weighted perimeter, and this is used for the problems of fluid mechanics or also it is used for the calculation of convection. Then it is used for the calculation of pressure drop. Okay, so there are some examples I have given over here how to calculate uh, uh, the characteristic length or the hydraulic diameter for the particular object. Okay, so this is the rectangular duct. Okay, rectangular duct, and this is the cross section of that particular rectangular duct. Okay, this is the cross section of rectangular duct. So in that case, if you apply our uh, formula of a characteristic length or the hydraulic diameter, so formula is d suffix h is equal to 4 multiplied by a suffix cs divided by p. So a suffix cs is nothing but cross section area, p is nothing but perimeter. So cross section area of this particular rectangular duct, okay, cross section area of rectangular duct is nothing but length multiplied by width. Okay, or we can say that length multiplied by height also. So L here is length is provided for the cross section, and this is the width B is provided for the cross section. So our cross section area is nothing but L multiplied by B. And how to determine the weighted perimeter? Perimeter, we know that perimeter is nothing but the addition of all the sides. Okay, that is L plus L and B plus B. That is nothing but 2L plus 2B. So we can say that 2 times L plus B. 2 times L plus B. Weighted perimeter means what? Through which the fluid is flowing and will be in a contact with that particular surface. Okay, that is nothing but weighted perimeter. So we'll get the hydraulic diameter in the case of a rectangular duct as 4 multiplied by L into B divided by 2 multiplied by L plus B. Okay, so 4 by 2 will be equal to 2, and we'll get the hydraulic diameter as 2 multiplied by L multiplied by B whole divided by L plus B. So in a similar fashion for rectangular annulus, okay, rectangular annulus means what? So one rectangular duct is there, and some geometry is placed, rectangular geometry is placed in that particular duct. Okay, so L1 B1 are the dimensions of larger rectangular duct, and L2 B2 are the dimensions of smaller rectangular duct. So in that case, how to determine the hydraulic diameter? Okay, so simpler, we have to use the equation for the hydraulic diameter as 4 multiplied by a suffix cs divided by p. Now actual cross section area, if you want to determine, then we have to subtract the cross section area of smaller duct from the larger duct. Okay, so L1 B1 minus L2 B2, and the weighted perimeter. So if weighted perimeter means the fluid will flow through this particular duct, and it will connect or it will be in a contact with these surfaces, and also it will be contact with this particular external surface of internal duct. So if you consider that, then the weighted perimeter will be equal to 2 times L1 plus B1 and 2 times L2 plus B2. Okay, perimeter of larger duct and perimeter of smaller duct. Addition of that two perimeters will be nothing but the weighted perimeter. So we'll get 2 times L1 plus in a square bracket L1 plus B1 plus in another bracket L2 plus B2. Okay, so that will be the weighted perimeter. And if you are going to consider that L1 is equal to B1, that is nothing but the square duct. This is, if you consider this is a square duct, in that case length and width are same. L1 is equal to B1 and L2 is equal to B2. So this will become 4 multiplied by L1 square minus L2 square whole divided by 2 times inside the bracket L1 plus L2 plus L2 plus L2. Okay, so that will becomes 4 times inside the bracket L1 plus L2. Okay, 4 times inside the bracket L1 plus L2. So 4 will be cancelled, and we know that L1 square minus L2 square is nothing but L1 plus L2 in another bracket L1 minus L2. So L1 plus L2 will be cancelled with the denominator, and we will get the hydraulic diameter as L1 minus L2. Okay, hydraulic diameter as L1 minus L2 if L1 is equal to B1 and L2 is equal to B2. Now if you consider the annulus, okay, that is nothing but the rectangular duct is there and the square duct is placed inside that particular rectangular duct. So in that case, how to determine the characteristic length or the hydraulic diameter. Okay, so we know that the cross section area of rectangular duct as L into B, subtract the cross section area of circular duct as pi by 4 d square. Okay, so that will be the cross section area, and the weighted perimeter means the addition of all the side. Okay, so L plus B, 2 times L plus B for the rectangular duct, and the perimeter of circular duct or cross section circular duct is pi d. Okay, so we will get the hydraulic diameter in case of annulus as 4 times L into B minus pi by 4 multiplied by d square whole divided by 2 times L plus B plus pi d. Okay, and in case of a circular annulus means the larger duct is circular, and also the smaller duct is also circular one. So in that case, we'll get the area as a subtraction of two circular duct cross section area subtraction as a 4 multiplied by pi by 4 d square minus d square, and the weighted perimeter is addition of weighted perimeters of two circles, that is nothing but pi inside the bracket d plus d. And we know that d square minus d square, capital D square minus small d square, we can write as a d plus d in another bracket d minus d. So d plus d will be cancelled with the denominator, and in case of circular annulus, we'll get the hydraulic diameter or the characteristic length as capital D minus small d, capital D minus small d. So in such a fashion, we have to determine the characteristic length for the various geometries, where we can use this particular characteristic length further in the calculation for the convection, okay, or for the fluid mechanics calculation purposes. Okay, getting everyone? Is there any question, any doubt? So write down characteristic length or equivalent diameter or hydraulic diameter. Characteristic length or equivalent diameter or hydraulic diameter. In that, write down the flat plates and pipes, the flat plates and pipes, the flat plates and pipes are the most simple geometries, for the occurrence of flow, the flat plates and pipes are the most simple geometries for the occurrence of flow, full stop. However, full stop. However, in many instances, some complicated geometries, are also used. Some complicated geometries are also used, and then all calculations concerning flow, and convective heat transfer becomes much more complicated and difficult, to stop. In order to avoid such difficulties, the concept of equivalent circular tube is used. In order to avoid such difficulties, the concept of equivalent circular tubes equivalent circular tube is used is used, full stop. Next, this is a tube, this is a tube which could present, this is a tube which could present the same resistance, this is a tube which could present the same resistance against against the flow, against the flow, or could secure the same heat transfer, or could secure the same heat transfer as the duct, as the duct usually used, as the duct usually used under equal or comparable condition, under equal or comparable conditions, under equal or comparable conditions, full stop. It is generally given by, it is generally given by LC or D suffix H, L suffix C, that is equivalent length, or D suffix H as hydraulic diameter or equivalent diameter, which is equal to 4 times cross section area, that is 4 multiplied by A suffix CS divided by weighted perimeter, divided by weighted perimeter, divided by weighted perimeter. Divided by weighted perimeter. So next line, write down. This is generally used to determine or finding out. This is generally used to finding out. This is generally used to finding out pressure drop. This is generally used to finding out pressure drop. This is generally used to finding out pressure drop, and also problems, and also problems, and also problems related to heat transfer by convection, related to heat transfer by convection, related to heat transfer by convection. Okay, so examples, first one, rectangular duct, rectangular duct, draw diagram and you can write these equations. Rectangular duct, Or the second one is for rectangular annulus, draw the diagram and write down the equations for rectangular annulus. Draw the figure and write down the equations for rectangular annulus. And finally, dh, d suffix h is equal to L1 minus L2. If L1 is equal to B1 and L2 is equal to B2. Or next one is for annulus, and for circular annulus. For annulus and for circular annulus. Draw the figures and note down the equation related to that particular figure. or have you written all the examples, all the figures and equations? So then we'll move ahead for the next point, dimensional analysis. Okay, important point from this chapter, dimensional analysis. So give the heading, dimensional analysis. So in the in second year also you learn this particular point, and in fluid mechanics, I think in fluid mechanics you have learned this dimensional analysis. Same techniques we are used over here to determine the dimensionless numbers of heat transfer. Because why we are considering the fluid mechanics points in this particular convection chapter? Because the convection is dealing with the fluid only, convection happening in a fluid only, where the fluid molecules are transporting from one place to another place and they are carrying the heat with them. So that is nothing but a convection. So and this heat transfer coefficient in a convection is depends on the flow properties. So we should apply the dimensional analysis to determine the fluid properties and the relationship between the fluid properties and the heat transfer coefficient. Okay, in case of a forced convection and free convection. So what is meant by dimensional analysis? So it is one kind of a technique which is used to solve the engineering problem by considering the dimensions of variables which are included in that particular phenomenon. Okay, which are included in a phenomenon, and how that particular variables will impact on the phenomena. Means what? If you consider the case of a force equation, force second law, Newton's second law, that is force is directly proportional to mass and acceleration, or force is the product of momentum equation. Momentum, second law is momentum. So force is equal to mass and acceleration. So that, if you consider that, why uh, m and a should be multiplied? Okay, so what is the position of m in the equation, and what is the position of a in the equation? So that one can determine if you know the number of variables included in a particular phenomena. Okay, so let us say that there are three variables are included in a force or the resistance phenomenon. That is nothing but one is force, second one is mass, and third one is acceleration. Okay, so these variables are included in if you apply the force on any object, then what is the relationship between force and mass? What is the relation between mass and acceleration? So that relationship we can establish by using the dimensional analysis, So for that reason, what we required? We should know the dimensions of each variables and their significance. Okay. Also, that particular dimensional analysis will provide you what is the significance of a particular variable in the phenomenon. Okay, what is the significance of a particular variable in the phenomenon? So this dimensional analysis is very much useful to determine the significance of particular variable in the equation. Also, it is useful to determine dimensionless number and their significance. Then it is also helpful for the model testing. Okay, so model testing means what? In model testing, if you learn the model testing in case of a fluid machinery, so where the small scale models are turbine small scale models are manufactured, and the testing has been performed on that particular small scale models, and for that particular model you required to consider the power, then the angle and all these things. So which variable will impact on which variable means what is the effect of variation of blade angle on the power, what is the variation of vane angle on the power. So that relationship we can determine by using the model testing. And if you manufacture that model in a large scale, okay, so we cannot do trial and error method for the fluid machinery equipments like turbines, we can say that Francis turbine, Kaplan turbine, because these machineries are very much in a large scale, lot of money is required to manufacture that particular machine. So initially, at the initial stage, we have to perform the model testing, and for that reason also this dimensional analysis is useful. Okay, so write down dimensional analysis. Dimensional analysis. Sohail, I will mark your absentee. Dimensional analysis. It is a mathematical technique. It is a mathematical technique which makes it is a mathematical technique which makes use of the study of it is a mathematical technique which makes use of the study of the dimensions use of the study of the dimensions for solving several engineering problems for solving several engineering problems several engineering problems. Full stop. The next one, dimensional analysis helps determining a systematic arrangement of variables of variables in a physical relationship in a physical relationship or in a physical phenomenon. Full stop. It deals with it deals with it deals with dimensions of physical quantities. It deals with dimensions of physical quantities which are involved. It deals with dimensions of physical quantities which are involved in the phenomenon, which are involved in the phenomenon. Then the fundamental dimensions, we know that length, mass, time, temperature, these are the fundamental dimension. Out of this fundamental dimension, LMT, that is length, mass, time, plays an important role in mechanics, fluid mechanics, while in heat transfer, we required all four fundamental quantities, that is nothing but L, M, T, and theta. Okay, L, M, T, theta. So length in bracket capital L, mass M, time T, temperature theta are the fundamental dimensions. Length, mass, time, temperature are the fundamental dimensions. Full stop. Out of these, out of these, out of these, LMT, that is length, mass, time, plays important role. Out of these, LMT plays important role in fluid mechanics. While 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 LMT theta are essential in heat transfer problem. Are essential in heat transfer problem. Out of these, LMT plays important role in fluid mechanics, while LMT theta are essential in heat transfer problem. Essential for are essential in heat transfer problems. Okay. So where we can use the dimensional analysis, or what are the usefulness or uses of dimensional analysis? First one, to test dimensional homogeneity of any equation of fluid motion. To test dimensional homogeneity, to test dimensional homogeneity of any equation of fluid motion. Then second one, to derive a rational formula, to derive rational formula for a flow phenomenon, to derive a rational formula for a flow phenomenon. To derive rational formula for a flow phenomenon, then to derive equation expressed, to derive equation expressed in terms of non-dimensional parameters, to derive equation expressed in terms of non-dimensional parameters, to show the relative significance of each parameter, to show the relative significance of each parameter. Full stop. Next one, to plan model tests, to plan model tests and present experimental results, to plan model tests and present experimental results in systematic manner, in systematic manner, thus making it possible, thus making it possible, thus making it possible to analyze, to analyze the complex fluid flow phenomena, thus making it possible to analyze, to analyze the complex, the complex, the complex fluid flow phenomena, the complex fluid flow phenomena. Full stop. Full stop. So next, what is meant by dimensional homogeneity? Okay. So you know that what is meant by dimensional homogeneity. So if you consider any equation, then the right hand side dimensions of that particular equations are equal to the left hand side dimensions. Then we can say that the equation is dimensionally homogeneous. Okay, then the equation is dimensionally homogeneous. Okay, so for the understanding purpose, I have taken one example. If you write the formula for the velocity as under root of 2gh, okay, under root of 2gh, then the u we can say that the velocity capital U as the velocity and under root of 2gh. Okay, so u dimensions are nothing but meter per second. Okay, unit is meter per second, so we can write the dimensions from this particular unit. Okay, if you know the unit, then it will be easy to write the dimensions for that particular unit. So meter, so L raised to 1, and second, that is time at the denominator side, so that t raised to -1. So we can write the dimensions of velocity as m raised to 0, L raised to 1, t raised to -1. So in a similar fashion, if you write the dimensions of under root of 2gh, so under root of 2 is the constant, so there will not be any dimensions for the under root of 2. So for that reason, we can take the under root of gh. So g is nothing but acceleration due to gravity, and its unit is meter per second square. So and the h is nothing but the height, and its unit is meter. Okay, so the dimensions of meter is nothing but length, and so that the dimensions is L. So L will become L raised to 2, and at the denominator side s square is there. So time dimension is there. So t raised to 2. So L square in under root L square divided by t raised to 2. So we'll get the dimensions as L divided by t. So in dimensional format, if you write the dimensions of L divided by t as m raised to 0, L raised to 1, and t raised to minus 1. So this dimensions of a right hand side term is equal to the left hand side term. So we can say that if the dimensions of, in the equation from the right hand side of the equal to sign are equal to left hand side of that particular equal to sign, then that particular equation is dimensionally homogeneous equation. Then that particular equation is dimensionally homogeneous equation. Okay, getting everyone? What is meant by dimensional homogeneity? So write down dimensional homogeneity, dimensional homogeneity, dimensional homogeneity. It means it means it means the dimensions of each term. It means the dimensions of each term in an equation. It means the dimensions of each term in an equation on both sides, on both sides, on both sides of an equation, of an equation are the same, are the same, are the same, then the equation is said to be, then the equation is said to be, then the equation is said to be dimensional homogeneous equation. Then the equation is said to be dimensional homogeneous equation. Okay. For the example purpose, you can write this. For the example purpose, you can write. Consider the equation u is equal to under root of 2gh, under root of 2gh. So u unit, that is nothing but velocity meter per second, is equal to m raised to 0, L raised to 1, t raised to minus 1. And under root of 2gh, we can take under root of gh only, because under root of 2 is constant and it does not have any dimension. So we will consider only under root of gh, which will be equal to, if you consider the units of g and h, unit of g is meter per second square and unit of h is meter, and their dimensions are, meter dimension will be L and the second dimension is t. So we'll get the dimensions L raised to 2 divided by t raised to 2. If you take out of under root sign, then it will be L divided by t. So we'll get the dimensions of under root of gh as m raised to 0, L raised to 1, t raised to minus 1. So RHS is equal to LHS. RHS dimensions are equal to the LHS dimension. So we can say that this particular equation is dimensionally homogeneous equation. This equation is dimensionally homogeneous equation. Getting? Okay. So further, we have to perform the analysis or dimensional analysis, and for that reason you required the number of dimensions. Okay, so at the initial stage only we have to write all the physical quantities which we required in the further analysis and their dimensions and their units. Okay, so make a table. In that, first column should be serial number, second column should be physical quantity, third column should be SI unit, fourth column should be symbol, and the last column should be dimensions. Okay, so in this manner you prepare one table. Okay, and that the dimension group is fundamental quantities. Okay, fundamental quantity. Which are the fundamental quantities? Mass, length, time, and temperature. These are the fundamental quantities. So we will segregate the dimensions in a different categories as per the heading. So first segregation is fundamental quantities. Fundamental quantities. Okay. So in that first one is mass. SI unit is kg. Symbol is capital M, and dimensions also in square bracket M. Okay. Then second one, length. SI unit is meter, and SI unit symbol is small m. Symbol is L, capital L. Dimension symbol is capital L. Then dimensions of length are only L. Then third one is time. SI unit is second. Symbol is capital T, and dimensions also capital T. Fourth one is temperature. SI unit is degree Celsius or Kelvin. Symbol is theta, and dimension is also theta. Okay, so write down the fundamental quantities, everyone. Okay, the next category of a dimension is geometric quantity. Okay, geometric dimensions. So in that, area, volume. Okay, these are the two quantities we are going to consider under the geometric quantities. Area, SI unit is meter square. Symbol is capital A, and dimensions are L raised to 2. Okay, dimensions are L raised to 2. And then sixth one is volume. SI unit is meter cube. Symbol is capital V, and dimensions are L raised to 3. Dimensions are L raised to 3. Write down, everyone, because you will require this particular quantities in further analysis related to the convection. Now next segregation is kinematic quantities. Kinematic quantities. Third one is kinematic quantities. In that, linear velocity. Kinematic quantities in that, first one is linear velocity. So linear velocity, SI unit is meter per second, and you can use any of the symbol out of this: small u, capital, small v, or small w. Okay, so meter per second. How to perform the dimensions of this particular velocity? So meter is nothing but L, and second is nothing but T. So divided by T is there. So T is at the denominator side. If you take to the numerator side, it will become T raised to -1. Okay, T raised to -1. So the dimension will be equal to L and t raised to minus 1. L and t raised to minus 1. Then angular velocity. Angular velocity, for the circular velocity, we know that circular motion, we know that we require the angular velocity, and its unit is radian per second. Radian per second. So a symbol you can use as omega. Okay, omega symbol, and the fundamental quantity, only one quantity included in this particular unit, that is nothing but second, and it is at the denominator side. So the dimensions for the angular velocity uh, is only t raised to minus 1. Only t raised to minus 1. Then further, acceleration. Okay, acceleration unit is meter per second square. Symbol is small a, and dimensions are L and t raised to minus 2. L t raised to minus 2. Okay. So here any raised to factor is not provided. That is nothing but it is L raised to 1. Okay. L raised to 1. So remember that thing. If not provided, that is nothing but L raised to 1. And if any dimension is not provided over here, that is nothing but m dimension is not provided uh, in this particular acceleration dimension, so that we can consider that there is m raised to 0. Okay, because no mass term is included in the acceleration, so we can say that that particular dimension m will be m raised to 0, so that we have not considered in the dimensions. Okay, so if you want to write this, so you can write m raised to 0, L raised to 1, t raised to minus 2 also. Okay. Then angular acceleration. Angular acceleration. So angular acceleration can unit is SI unit is radian per second square. Symbol is alpha, and only one fundamental dimension is included, that is nothing but t, and its dimensions dimension is nothing but t raised to minus 2. Angular acceleration dimension is t raised to minus 2. Okay. Then discharge, flow discharge, we know that. So it is expressed as volume per time. Okay. So volume dimension is meter cube, unit is meter cube, and time unit is second. So meter cube per second is the unit of discharge. Its symbol is capital Q, and we can write the dimension of this discharge as L raised to 3 and t raised to minus 1. L raised to 3, t raised to minus 1. Then kinematic viscosity. Kinematic viscosity unit is meter square per second, and its symbol is nu, and its unit dimension is L raised to 2, t raised to minus 1. Dimension is L raised to 2, t raised to minus 1. Getting everyone how to derive the dimension from the from its unit. For the particular quantity, how to derive the dimension from that quantity unit. Okay, if you know the unit, SI unit, then it will be easy to determine the dimensions on the basis of units. Kinematic viscosity unit is meter square per second. Symbol is nu, and dimension is L raised to 2, t raised to minus 1. Then next segregation is dynamic quantities. Dynamic quantities. Dynamic quantities. So first dynamic quantity is force or resistance. Okay. So its force unit is Newton. But for the Newton, if you are unable to determine the dimensions, then you can write force formula as mass into acceleration, so that you will come to know the dimensions of the Newton. Okay, so force is equal to mass into acceleration. So mass dimensions are nothing but m raised to 1, and acceleration is nothing but uh, meter per second square. So we know the acceleration dimension, so that we can directly consider these dimensions of mass and acceleration, and we can derive the dimensions for the force, okay, or the Newton, for the Newton. Okay, so if you consider the mass dimension as m raised to 1 and acceleration dimensions as m raised to 1 and t raised to minus 2, okay, L raised to 1 and T raised to minus 2. That is the dimensions of acceleration. And if you combine, as we have multiplying these two, mass and acceleration, so that we will get the dimensions of a Newton as mlt raised to minus 2. mlt raised to minus 2. Getting everyone how to derive the dimensions on the basis of formula also. Then next one is the density. Density unit is kg per meter cube, and its symbol is rho, and its dimensions are m l raised to minus 3. m l raised to minus 3. Then specific weight. Okay, specific weight. Specific weight formula, if you not remember and you remember the unit as Newton per meter cube. Okay, now in this case, if you know the Newton dimension, or if you not know the Newton dimension, derive from the force equation, that is mass into acceleration. Okay, then you will come to know the Newton dimensions and divided by meter cube. Okay, that is nothing but volume. Meter cube is the unit of volume. So Newton divided by meter cube, that is weight divided by volume, that is nothing but specific weight, and its symbol is small w. Okay, and you can easily derive the dimensions of specific weight if you remember the dimensions of a Newton. If you not remember the dimensions of a Newton, just remember the formula of a force, then you will get the dimensions of a Newton, and the dimensions of a meter cube is nothing but L raised to 3. Divide by L raised to 3, you will get the dimensions of specific weight as m L raised to minus 2 T raised to minus 2. In the last lecture only, we have derived the dynamic viscosity unit as Newton second per meter square. Dynamic viscosity unit is Newton second per meter square, and its symbol is mu. Okay, now here Newton unit we know, and its dimensions we know, second dimension we know, and meter square dimension also we know. Just put up that all the dimensions, and you'll get the dimensions of a dynamic viscosity as m L raised to minus 1 T raised to minus 1. m L raised to minus 1 T raised to minus 1. Okay, then further, the next quantity under the dynamic quantities is nothing but work or energy. Okay, work or energy, both are having the same unit as Newton meter, or you can say that joule. Okay, Newton meter or joule. Newton meter is also called as a joule unit. So its symbol is, work symbol is capital W, and energy symbol is capital E. So that you can derive from this particular unit, you can derive the dimensions of work and energy as m L raised to 2 T raised to minus 2. m L raised to 2 T raised to minus 2. The next one is the power. Okay, power unit is Newton meter per second or joule per second. Okay, power unit is Newton meter per second or joule per second, and symbol is P, capital P. Okay, So if you remember the Newton dimensions, and m dimension is L raised to 1 and s dimension is T raised to minus 1. Okay. So if you put this dimension in this equation, so you'll get the power dimension as m L raised to 2 T raised to minus 3. M L raised to 2 T raised to minus 3. Then last segregation is thermodynamic quantities. Thermodynamic quantities. Okay. So first quantity is heat. Okay. And its symbol is SI unit is joule. Heat SI unit is joule. And it can also symbolically represented as capital Q. Okay. And the joule dimensions. Okay. Newton meter means what? Joule. Newton meter means what? Joule. And its dimensions are m L raised to 2 T raised to minus 2. The same dimensions for the heat also we can use as m L raised to 2 T raised to minus 2. Okay. Then thermal conductivity. Thermal conductivity, we know the unit watt per meter degree Celsius. So if you remember that watt is nothing but joule per second. Watt is nothing but what? Joule per second. And just only we have derived the joule dimensions as m L raised to 2 T raised to minus 2. So if you consider this dimension for joule, and if you put up the dimensions of a second, meter, and degree Celsius to the denominator side, then it will be easy to determine the thermal conductivity dimensions. Okay. So thermal conductivity symbol is capital K. Okay. And its dimension after deriving the dimension from this particular unit, we'll get the dimensions as mlt raised to minus 3 theta raised to minus 1 theta raised to minus 1. Okay. Theta represent the temperature. Theta represent the temperature. So mlt raised to minus 3 theta raised to minus 1 is the dimensions of a thermal conductivity. Then specific heat. Specific heat unit is joule per kg Kelvin or kilojoule per kg Kelvin. Okay. Or kilojoule per kg degree Celsius. And its unit is its symbol is Cp or Cv, specific heat at constant pressure and specific heat at constant volume. Anyone we can consider the symbol of specific heat. And joule dimensions we have derived, divide by the kg dimensions and degree Celsius dimension. We'll get the dimensions of a specific heat as L raised to 2 T raised to minus 2 and theta raised to minus 1. L raised to 2 T raised to minus 2 theta raised to minus 1. Okay. Then heat transfer coefficient. Okay. Convective heat transfer coefficient. We know the unit of convective heat transfer coefficient as watt per meter square degree Celsius. We can represent symbolically as small h or capital U. Capital U for the overall heat transfer coefficient. The first chapter we have discussed this particular point, overall heat transfer coefficient. So the same unit we can use for the overall heat transfer coefficient also. And we know the unit of watt per thermal conductivity. Just once again divide by uh, uh, m, that is nothing but meter, to this particular unit, you'll get the unit of heat transfer coefficient. Heat transfer coefficient. Okay. Thermal conductivity unit is watt per meter degree Celsius, and thermal heat transfer coefficient unit is watt per meter square degree Celsius. So whatever the dimensions you are getting, just divide this dimension once again by L. Okay. So L will be cancelled from this particular term, and you will get the dimensions are as m T raised to minus 3 theta raised to minus 1. Theta raised to minus 1. Over. Then next one is a gas constant. Gas constant R, we know that R is the gas constant we are considering in case of thermodynamic equations, and its unit is kilojoule per kg degree Celsius, same as that of a specific heat, same as that of a specific heat. So we can take the dimensions of a specific heat for this particular gas constant also. Okay, so specific heat and gas constant dimensions are same one, L raised to 2, T raised to minus 2, theta raised to minus 1. Same dimensions we can consider for the gas constant, L raised to 2, T raised to minus 2, theta raised to minus 1. Okay, and the last one is the thermal diffusivity. Thermal diffusivity unit is meter square per second, and its symbol is alpha. So we can write the dimensions of thermal diffusivity as L raised to 2, T raised to minus 1. L raised to 2, T raised to minus 1. Is there any question, any doubt in this particular dimensions and whatever the points we have covered today? Okay, I've done with this particular all dimensions, symbols, and the physical quantities and their SI units. Okay, so the next one is the methods of a dimensional analysis. Okay, so these methods you have learned also. Once again, we will revise these methods. The first one is nothing but a Rayleigh's method, and the second one is nothing but a Buckingham pi theorem. So these two methods we are using for the dimensional analysis. Okay, Rayleigh's method and the Buckingham pi theorem. But there are some negative points about the Rayleigh's method. So in most of the cases, uh, there are number of variables are greater than 5, or number of variables included in one of the phenomena is more than 5. Then in that case, Rayleigh's method is not that much effective, or it will fails to provide the solution for the particular phenomenon. So in that case, we have to use the Buckingham pi theorem. Okay, so to apply the dimensional analysis, it is required to know the number of variables included in that particular phenomenon. Okay, whatever the phenomenon you are going to consider, how much variables are included in that phenomenon, that should be known to you at the initial stage only, so that you can consider that particular variables to derive the equation for the phenomenon. Okay, so initial condition or initial requirement to apply the dimensional analysis is nothing but under, finding out the number of variables included in that phenomenon, physical phenomenon. Okay, so we are going to consider this particular dimensional, this particular two methods to derive the dimensional analysis for the different phenomena, and that we will consider in the next lecture. We'll start with the Rayleigh's method, and then we'll go for the Buckingham pi theorem. So in next lecture, we will discuss about the Rayleigh's method. Okay, and we'll discuss how to apply the Rayleigh's method and their examples on the Rayleigh's method. Okay, is there any question, any doubt? Please let me know if you have any question, any doubt, whether you understood all the things from the today's lecture. Is there any doubt? If you have, if you don't have any doubt, just put up your roll numbers in the chat box, and you can leave the meeting. Remaining student, just put up your roll numbers in the chat box and you can leave. Six, 3, 67, 62, 33, 35. Just leave your roll number in the chat box and you can leave this meeting.